Welcome to True Terror Tales, where the boundaries between fact and fiction are often blurred by darkness and fear. Tonight we bring you two spine-chilling stories that will leave you questioning what is real and what is mere fiction. One story is based on real events, an unsolved mystery that has left both authorities and locals alike bewildered. The other, an eerie and terrifying tale of pure imagination. But can you tell which is which? Stay with us until the end to find out, and see if you can guess which one is true. Get ready to hear about a dark ritual hidden deep in the Black Forest of Germany and the chilling disappearance of a patient from a hospital in upstate New York. Both tales are shrouded in mystery, but only one is a true story. Which one will it be? Let's dive into these horrifying accounts. Are you ready to uncover the truth? Deep in the heart of Germany's Black Forest lies a place few dare to visit. With its dense trees and ancient myths, the forest has long been a place of mystery and fear. In the 1980s, a young couple, Anna and Peter Schreiber, decided to take a hiking trip through the forest. Neither of them knew the danger they were about to walk into. It was a decision that would change their lives forever. The journey started as any typical hiking adventure would. Fresh air, beautiful scenery, and the sense of being far away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. But as evening fell, the weather began to shift. Dark clouds rolled in from the mountains, and the wind started to howl through the trees. With no sign of a shelter in sight, Anna and Peter stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. The structure was hidden among the trees, as if the forest itself had been trying to keep it a secret. They decided to take refuge inside, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. As they stepped through the door, the floor creaked beneath their feet. The cabin was poorly lit, with only a few slivers of light breaking through the cracks in the walls. It looked abandoned, but it felt strange, almost as though something had been waiting for them. The first oddity Anna noticed was the strange symbols carved into the walls. At first glance, they looked like ancient runes, their meaning impossible to decipher. But there was something eerie about them. The deeper they explored the cabin, the more symbols they found, each one more disturbing than the last. The air felt thick with something unexplainable, and Anna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Peter, ever the skeptic, dismissed her concerns. "It's just an old cabin, Anna. This place is probably just full of strange carvings from people who used to live here," he said, trying to calm her nerves. But Anna couldn't ignore the whispering sounds that seemed to echo around the room, faint but unmistakable. It was as if the very walls were speaking to her. She could feel her heart race as she clutched Peter's arm, urging him to leave. But just as they were about to make their exit, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The lights flickered, casting shadows that danced on the walls. Panic surged through them both. They tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Suddenly they heard a noise outside, the sound of footsteps crunching on the dry leaves. Looking through a crack in the door, they saw figures standing in the clearing outside, hooded, their faces obscured by darkness. They held candles that flickered eerily in the growing storm. The figures began to chant in a low, guttural language. The words were foreign, but their tone was unmistakably sinister. Anna and Peter tried to call out to the figures, but their voices were lost in the wind. The chanting grew louder, more frantic. Panic set in as the symbols on the walls began to glow, their shapes twisting and shifting in the dim light. The forest around them seemed to come alive, its trees groaning and bending as if reacting to the dark ritual taking place. Terrified, Anna grabbed Peter's hand, pulling him toward the window. As they looked out, they saw more hooded figures emerging from the trees, surrounding the cabin. Their faces were obscured by their hoods, but their eyes, glowing with an unnatural red hue, pierced the darkness. The chanting reached a fever pitch, and Anna could feel the air growing thick with malevolent energy. With no other choice, they bolted for the door, throwing their weight against it in a desperate attempt to escape. The moment they stepped outside, the figures seemed to close in on them, their chants intensifying. The forest around them became a blur of shadow and movement. The trees appeared to twist and turn, trapping them in a maze of thick, overgrown branches. Somehow, by sheer luck, they managed to break free. Anna stumbled out of the forest, gasping for air, but Peter was nowhere to be found. As the daylight began to break, hikers found Anna, disoriented and trembling. She had no memory of how she had escaped or what had happened to Peter. The authorities dismissed her story as a result of trauma, but Anna knew what she had seen. In the following days, she would learn of the local legend, a dark cult that performed rituals in the depths of the forest. worshipping ancient forest spirits and making sacrifices to them. But Peter? He was never found, and no trace of him was ever discovered. To this day, the Black Forest remains a place of dark and twisted legends, and some say that the ritual still happens every year. Dr. Emily Grayson was no stranger to the strange and bizarre cases that came through the emergency room at St. Mark's Hospital in upstate New York. But one particular night in 2003 would shake her to the core. The ER was packed as usual, with everything from broken bones to more serious cases. But one patient in particular stood out. He was a man in his late 40s, found unconscious in a nearby alley. He had no identification on him, and paramedics could only tell Dr. Grayson that he had been brought in after being discovered in a confused and distressed state. As they wheeled him into the trauma unit, Emily noted that his clothes were torn, and his hands were covered in deep, strange markings, symbols that seemed almost ritualistic. When the man finally regained consciousness, his eyes were wide with terror. He looked around the room, his breath shallow and rapid. "They're coming for me," he muttered repeatedly. "You need to keep them away from me." Dr. Grayson tried to calm him down, but the man's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He began to speak in fragmented sentences, warning of something dark and unseen following him. The staff dismissed his behavior as paranoia, perhaps a side effect of his injuries, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The man kept repeating that he wasn't safe and that he had to remain hidden. Soon the hospital staff began to notice strange occurrences. Equipment malfunctioned at odd times. The lights flickered, casting long, unsettling shadows in the hallways. Nurses reported hearing whispers in the middle of the night, and a strange chill began to settle over the building. But it wasn't until 3:33 a.m. that things took a truly terrifying turn. Emily was called to check on the patient, who had been growing more restless. When she entered his room, she found it empty. The bed was cold, and the door was still locked. But there were no signs of a struggle. The only thing left behind was a piece of paper on the bed. On it were the same symbols that had been carved into the man's hands. But that wasn't the worst part. The room was freezing cold, and there was an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to hang in the air. Security footage was reviewed, but no one had entered or left the room. The man had simply vanished into thin air. Over the following weeks, several staff members reported seeing fleeting shadows moving through the hospital. Strange whispers filled the halls at night. Dr. Grayson, unable to shake the events of that night, left her position at St. Mark's, but she never spoke of what happened again. To this day, the patient's identity remains unknown, and the mystery of his disappearance is just another unsolved case in the hospital's dark history. So, which one of these stories is true? Is the tale of the Black Forest ritual a real event, or was it simply a terrifying work of fiction? And what about the vanishing patient? Did this truly happen, or is it another eerie legend? Well, here's the truth. Story 2 is true. The vanishing patient is based on a documented mysterious case that has baffled medical professionals and security staff at St. Mark's Hospital. As for the Black Forest ritual, that's a fictional story inspired by the countless eerie legends surrounding Germany's Black Forest. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you guessed correctly, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of terror.